Hello everybody, welcome to the third part of this tutorial series. In this tutorial we'll be speaking about uploading our newly built asset bundles to a faraway server. We'll be checking if those bundles will be downloaded on the client side, and I'll walk you through a small test case to see if we've performed some modifications in our game. If those modifications in our game project, we'll check if those modifications will be, so how to replicate them on the client devices. On the previous two tutorials, we've talked a bit about some highlights of DBB, how to set up and run the test project. We've built our bundles and I've shown you three different methods of doing so. I've also shown you how to create your own level configurations and how to actually load them. So for this tutorial, I assume you have your asset bundles already built from last time. If you don't, you'll just have to build them now by clicking the build plugin bundles button and build game bundles button, or by using these automation tools by checking the build game bundles and plugin bundles and clicking the perform selected, and then you can resume the tutorial from here. First of all, before deploying our bundles to a server, we must have a server configured. DBB, I've designed DBB to work with an FTP server due to the fact that they are very easy to configure, even by those who are not well familiar with web technologies. For development, I've installed a local FTP server on my machine, a FileZilla Server, which uses to upload. I've configured to use a folder on my machine, which is this on my storage drive, Asset Bundles FTP Store. This is the folder which will be used by the server to upload and download the bundles. As you can see in this interface, in this custom inspector, we must have two sets of credentials, one for the server, for the Unity editor to upload the bundles, to authenticate, which must have right permissions, of course, and this set of credentials right here to be used by the client devices to authenticate to the server to download the actual bundles. This set of credentials must have only, but I emphasize only, read permissions, because these credentials right over here will be packed with the final game you build and ship to your customers into your APK or IXE or whatever form your game will take. Will be shipped in plain text, so if someone does really reverse engineer your game build, will have these credentials and probably will use them to unlawfully authenticate your FTP server. So if it does so, make sure these credentials do not have write or delete permissions, because they will wreak havoc. I've provided quite a few warnings about this inside the manual, as you can see here, also here. Back to the server side, I have already configured those credentials pair. This deploy user and password uses, as I said, this folder, which I've shown you here, to upload. As you can see, it has all the permissions: read, write, delete, append, also for directories, create, list, and the other credential for that I will be shipping with my build, my player build. For the same folder, it has only the read permission, as I said, and for directories, the list. So if you need to, I will not enter into many details of how to configure your FTP server. I'm sure you will manage using the internet. These settings also differ from case to case by differ from one program to another. I'm using FileZilla Server for testing and development. You can use it too to test this library. Of course, when you've done and you want to move your servers to production, you'll have to make sure the server you are using will be accessible both to your editor and your customer devices, so it must be somewhere on the public side. This server is just local for me. As you can see here, the address of the server, it's pointing locally. So let's fill the credentials. If you want, you can save on the editor preferences the credentials for the upload to spare you from entering each time you perform an upload bundles. So I have the bundles built from earlier. I've entered the credentials. I can just upload them. So as you can see, the process went very smooth and fast, mainly because the asset bundles are small and the connection is very fast, the server being run locally, so expect to have bigger loading times for this process as your bundles increase and the connection to your server is weak. Now that we've built our bundles and upload them to a server, let's use them externally of the Unity project. For this, we'll be building a game player outside of this project. I'm running on a Windows 10 machine, so the game here you have to configure the folders where the game will be built. It's already configured for me, but I'll show you nonetheless. It will be built on my desktop in a folder, and click build player. You also can add additional options, read the manual for further information regarding this editor part. So we've built our player. The game player must be here. Here it is. We have the .exe files, some other resources, and we'll just start it and see the game does not have its bundles packed with it, so it must connect them to the server and download them. Let's see if it does that. Here it is, the patching / downloading process. It has connected to the local server, it downloads the bundles, and after that the game should automatically load into the main menu scene, sorry. Here it is. So that's that. Now let's just see how we can propagate some changes from our, let's just say we'll create a patch for our game, and I'll show you. We'll take a testing, we'll make a bit of small changes for testing purposes. Let's just say we want to modify the camera inside our menu. We'll select the main menu camera. Let's just say we'll alter its rotation. Let's just modify something else. Props. Let's just modify the scale of the props inside the main menu scene. Now, what we have to do to see those changes inside our game, the build game, well, we'll have to rebuild our bundles, of course, and deploy them to the server, the new bundles. I have to mention that this upload bundles feature knows to deploy only the bundles that have changed in order to spare you some bandwidth. So let's just use this small automation tool, build game bundles and upload. We'll wait for completion. A small pop-up message should appear informing of that all was done. In some cases, it's good to know that when using DBB you can follow the console log to see any potential issues that could occur during building your bundles, uploading. I've outputted lots of potential error messages regarding your connection credentials and so on. So now theoretically, when we start the game, pretend that this game is on some faraway devices installed on your customer phones. They will go to the game and start it, and the game should automatically connect to the server and download the new, as you can see. And voila, the changes. The camera was rotated in a horrible angle, meaning that our changes that we've performed inside our editor reached our customer devices. So that's the workflow to ship a patch to your to the game installed on your customer devices. I have to mention the fact that in this case I've modified only some prefabs, some configurations on prefabs, but it's a technical limitation that I want to tell you about. I've written in the manual also about it. If you, for example, you have the UI prefab, you add some buttons to it, rebuild the bundle, the UI bundle, upload it, your customer client devices will connect to the server, will download that bundle, will apply it locally, and they'll have that button. But what they won't have the button functionality. There is a limitation that asset bundles do not contain compiled code. So if you add new logic to your game in form of new code, as you can see here, you have a tool, a warning label that warns you of that player rebuild is not needed, no code changes since last build. But if this label says that you have code changes since the last time you've built your player, it means that it is not enough to rebuild your bundles, upload them, and your customer devices automatically downloading them to have the full functionality. It means that you also have to give them the new IXE or APK, which contains the new compiled code for that functionality which you've just added. So the asset bundles are limited to changes regarding your assets, your script configurations, you're adding new sprites, adding new music, changing them, so on and so forth. But when it comes to coding, if one line of code you've changed, you must also rebuild the player and ship it to your customers, along with potential bundles rebuilding. I've written in a bit of detail about this in the manual. This technical limitation is due to the Unity's own asset bundling processes, is not due to the fact that Dreambit bundles limits you. It's Unity that's enforcing this limitation. Hopefully this tutorial was also helpful for you. If you have any further questions, I have provided in the manual some contact means to reach me. I'll be happy to help you further with any questions you might have. Hopefully it was I was bearable. I'm a terrible narrator, I know. Those being said, thank you.